I was muted. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon for some.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon for some.
And there's echo. Let me kill that. There we go. This is fourth edition of Worship Me Work. I am going to continue working on CockroachDB. We have a logging project started a couple of weeks ago. In fact, it's been started since July, which is to improve the experience of database operators when it comes to understanding CockroachDB internals as through the logging events. Where we arrived last week was a bit forward with the configuration syntax and a couple of bug fixes. And since the last session Monday, I did some behind the scenes work. I went through the code base. I extracted a couple of changes I had made in my work tree into individual commits that will be easier to review for my coworkers. And I have also added some testing, and I have added some comments through the code to explain everything that's been done in the last few weeks. And the other thing I've been doing, I've been exploring what are standards, modern standard network log collectors. So what are the services or systems that exist that we can reuse for extending the capability of CockroachDB to log to other things than just files. My findings were limited to the standard tools in GCP, a couple of open source packages that I know about, and Datadog, that is pretty popular, and Splunk, which is a general purpose data collector. And the latest one that I've looked at was Fluent. Fluent, let's open that web page. Fluent is a general purpose data collector for logging and monitoring. And the particular interest I've had in that system is that it is more than just a log collector, it is a log multiplexer. It's able to collect data from many different sources, transform it, buffer it, and route it to many other systems for archival, for monitoring, for analysis, for storage, and so on. I like it better than the other things I've found and investigated for two reasons. Number one reason, this is a rather lightweight open source package, and therefore it is more likely to be adopted by someone who wants to up their logging game if they don't have something yet. It's simpler to deploy, configure. It's much faster to get something working out of the box. It's also not a cloud service necessarily. That means that it's also possible to use that in one own database or cluster without access to the internet. And additionally, it integrates with GCP and I think AWS as well. That means that GCP in particular has a number of logging collection services and facilities for integration with the other components of the Google Cloud ecosystem. And all of these integrate with a Fluent log collector. So if my service, for example, is able to emit its event to Fluent, then I can directly integrate with a lot of tools from, for example, Google Cloud. That was a pretty big surprise. Of course, Datadog, which is a service, does also accept events from Fluent and Splunk as well. So I find it a general purpose common middleware, not middleware because it's very lightweight. It's not actually middleware. A common language, maybe better explanation to integrate with other tools. That has helped me formulate some things that I was worried about, but without understanding I was worried about it before. Whenever the topic of network log collection and logging formats came up, I was always, yeah, but it's not always, I mean, the real problem is not to just open a network connection and send data to it. Depending on what people want to do with this data, it needs to have a particular shape, it needs to follow a particular protocol. And before I know it, then I will have people saying, well, you made it work with my software, and now I want it to work with this other software instead. And then we need to re-implement all the protocols and the formats and so on for the other thing. And I did not want to put my team in a position where we would have a long tail of compatibility effort with a lot of different tools. And so we had to find something that was kind of a common ground that would require minimal configuration. And after investigation, it appears that Fluent gives us this. I can have a single output format from CockroachDB and then send that data to Fluent and have then documentation that explains how to tweak filtering and rewriting inside Fluent, or maybe the downstream log collectors to put that data in a different shape. So I was happy to learn that, and it unlocked me from that mental blockage I had regarding network logging. I was also very happy to learn that Fluent is pretty lenient about what kind of data can be piped to it while still being able to do something useful with it. So how did I test it? I have installed I have installed Fluent on my server computer, and I have put it, I've given it a simple configuration file. So what Fluent doesn't really have what's called the default configuration. Every single package manager that provides Fluent will choose some arbitrary defaults to put inside the file, but then the users are invited to configure it to their own desires. So what I chose to have here is they default to sources that were in the documentation because I don't fully understand them, so I just left them there. The first one, it's available in order to send data through a command line utility called FluentCat directly to the server if I don't want to open a network connection from the command line. The second one is to send events through the HTTP protocol. And that's the third one that I created for my testing. What this does, it accepts data on TCP on a row TCP socket, and it accepts data in JSON format. And I also told it that the tag for the logging event, which is the way for Fluent to organize logging events into different visual streams, is going to be extracted from the payload, meaning that my provider of data will be responsible for annotating the events with their category. And that's that's more or less the view that we were working on with the channels project inside CockroachDB. We are going to map those channels to tags. And also, the events can provide their own timestamps as opposed to having Fluent annotate the events with a timestamp. And that is what it says here. So the tag that is written here is applicable when the event does not provide its own tag. So it's a fallback tag. And once I have those sources, then I have to decide what Fluent does with this. And so the way, and then there is debug agent, which I've not used yet. And the way it works is that you have zero more match sections that match tags. And so here I say that everything that matches everything goes to this section. And this section is a file collector that will write the messages received to files named after the tag. So that means that different channels will have different tags and therefore will come into different files in the end. Append means I don't want to create a new file every time an event is collected. So I want to continue using the same log file. And this is the buffering rule. I want to buffer and synchronize on disk every second. I want to mark the times using UTC inside the files. And the format I want to use, I have customized a default I didn't like because I wanted to see the decimal part after the second, which is not provided by default. So that's my custom Fluent configuration, and then what I did to test it, I sent it some example JSON through its command, and then the way I saw the output was to go and look at the files that were generated. And so what we see here is that my example payload, which eventually I also have some Go code prototype, provides a tag inside the JSON, and then Fluent extracts it to make it a tag column. The timestamp that is here in Unix decimal form is translated to a full timestamp. I know the format is correct because date and time matches, and then even the decimals here correspond to the decimals I've sent here, so I'm all right. And then the rest of the payload. And so with Fluent, I can then configure everything to let me shut down this. How do I? This is a cloud thing. Let's quit it. And I'm going to quit my messaging as well to not get disrupted. So with Fluent, I can then have filters to decide how to organize my log data. For example, I can have filters that says that every data corresponding to a particular tag, which is going to be a channel inside CockroachDB, is going through the network somewhere else, for example, to an IDS, an intrusion detection system, for the purpose of finding out if there are attackers trying to take over my database or something like this. And there's another thing that I will want to be doing at some point, which is log redaction. So I'm pretty sure that with Fluent, I can edit the log messages or like the individual parts of a JSON payload with string substitution, but I haven't yet found how to do this. So that is something I still need to learn to find out. If you have any comments or suggestions about how to get there, I will take them. I didn't yet find keywords. So what we're going to do today is to look at this code. I have started a prototype inside CockroachDB and then integrate it better so that we can choose per channel also what goes to Fluent. Also, currently the severity is inside a JSON field, but I also probably want it in the tag so that it's available for filtering. And there is a question to be answered about what happens when the network logging server becomes unavailable. So something that came up when I was testing this is that, of course, if the Fluent configuration needs to change, the server needs to be restarted, and then any server connected to it that is currently sending events will fail its writes. And so I have some code here that I started quickly and dirtily to prototype to print out when there is an error during a write operation to the network, and then reconnect and try a second time. And then I wonder if I want to just try a second time or whether I want to try up to 5 seconds with some kind of retry loop. We'll need to investigate that. And there is, of course, the question of configuration. Fluent accepts data on many different channels. Today, we looked at the configuration that accepts the data on an encrypted TCP stream that's suitable, for example, for local logging. That being said, in a multi-server configuration with a centralized log collector, it's very likely we will want to use TLS for connecting to the log server. And so there will be some time at some points where I will need to add some option for connecting through TLS and providing the right CA certificate for proper TLS authentication. So I'm not saying all this is going to happen today. It's not likely. However, from all this investigation and all this potential, I have a lot of excitement about this. I think we can get a lot of feature coverage and user satisfaction with reasonably little code. Reasonably doesn't mean not at all. It just means it's not going to take ages. So that's exciting. So here's the function I prototyped with the encoding of a log entry. So the log entry, as is shown here in the pop-up, has a number of fields. None of them are documented, I'm seeing now. That is not great, as the documentation is not there. I'm going to add that in a second. And then it takes the entry, takes an optional stack trace. Our logging sometimes will add a stack trace to log messages. And then it goes on to assemble a JSON payload. So I chose to not use the regular Go JSON encoder for doing this. And I'm not sure that this decision was well justified. So my reasoning went as follows. We have in the rest of our logging package some effort to avoid heap allocations when assembling, say, log messages. And that is because at some point in the past, as we were analyzing performance bottlenecks inside CockroachDB, we found out that the logging was a source of a lot of allocation overhead and therefore garbage collection overhead inside the process. And so I understand that there is some intention, or there was at least at some point some intention to limit the memory pressure of the logging subsystem. And I propagated that understanding to this function here. And that does really sound to me like parameter optimization. Nevertheless, there is an advantage to this, which is that this way I have a more direct and fine-grained control over the name of the fields. The thing is, the entry that is here, I can't just convert to have only the fields that interest me with the right format. I want, so we do need for Fluent to have a timestamp that has a decimal part. We also want to ensure that the encoding in JSON puts everything on a single line, because Fluent is dependent on having the new line character as a separator for logging events. So by having my own function, I felt I was more able to control the exact shape of the payload that is being produced. And so I have this continuing this thinking of the previous code in the package to avoid heap allocation and combining it with some additional fine-grained control over the shape of the output. And thanks to this, I have a function that emits log events, and that is what we saw in here. Well, it's not exactly what we sent here. So in order to see exactly what it does, the best way I found was to stop, say, server, this Fluent server. And that gives me error messages here. Anytime now the server is trying to write something on the network, it fails to connect. So it failed to write and then it fails to connect. And that's what we're seeing here. The error message, and then there is a logging message that got lost. And that is the message that was sent to Fluent. So we see the tag with the name of our logging channel, also a numeric version of it, the timestamp and everything here. And all this on a single line. And if I restart the server from here, then it will be able to resume, and then we're going to get our data back. So actually, there is some reasoning here. So see, I wanted my logging error messages network. Logging can come with errors because it's of course a distributed system. And so not only do I want the thing to retry in case of error, but I also want it to be able to print out what it failed to send. So here we saw it worked at least once. The moment the server went down, then the next logging message was printed here on the standard error. That's great. But then what we see is that the subsequent messages were not printed. Instead, we just got the connection error. So that is a bummer. The problem I have here is because of the connect logic here. So I have a try write, and otherwise I try to connect and then I try to write again. And if the ensure con fails, then I lose the write, because after ensure con there is another try write, but that will fail because the good flag is not set. I only get a copy of this message, of this logging error when I have a valid connection to start with, and I only fail during the write. So in order to improve this, I'm going to add some explanation, a copy of my message in the ensure con here. So that's a payload that I want to write, and then I'm going to add it here. And then suppose, and here I have a close. I don't care about the close. I really care about this. So now we're going to try this again. Yeah. Of course, I just added a flag, but I'm not passing it. Oh, I got my Twitch spam. Let's see. Cool. Cool. So my server is again available. So I start it. Then I stop my Fluent server, and then that will cause the next log message to fail. And then it also fails. It also reports the payload when it fails to connect again. And so there will be another connection error in a second, and then every time there is a message that fails to be sent to the network logger, I will see it on the standard error stream. So why is that useful to have it on the standard error stream? I think my reasoning about this is that as a developer and as a system operator, I really hate it when data like logging that is important for me to troubleshoot a system, especially when something goes wrong, like the connection between the server and the logging system doesn't work. I don't know whether there is something happening or not. And if the system would just eat my data, I would not be able to see anything. And so by having the data sent out to the standard error stream, then I have some confidence that I can find the data again should I lose it. So that's what we see here. And now if I let the server start again, like the Fluent server start again, then the connection is going to be resumed. Probably useful to have a little message here. Connection to network logger resumed. And then because it's true, then the write afterwards will resume. Probably I would want to have a timestamp here somewhere. Nah, let's leave it there for now. It's premature UX optimization. So what do I have here? So I have a system that has a fixed configuration. It's hard-coded. Run it on localhost, fixed ports. It's also hard-coded to use TCP. So let's make this network address configurable. Protocol. And then I'm going to have here. Oh, it's not protocol. It is network. And thanks to this now, assuming I was able to make this more configurable, I would be able to decide on the command line what flag to use. That sounds like additional configuration for our configuration system, which is still not exactly connected to the rest of the code, but we're getting there. Another thing I did also, by the way, I'm going to come back to that in a second. So backlog, so backtracking a little bit. I said I was sad that, say, fields in this protobuf are not documented. So let's do this. Severity is, say, importance of the log entry. See, say, documentation for the severity and for more details. Why do I get 4 indentation in the farthest 2? I don't know. Nanoseconds things the epoch. I'm going to that. Go routine ID. This helps match logging events with go routine stack dumps. Then the file name where the logging event was produced. Logging client code can adjust this with, say, depth parameter. Line number in the file. Documentation on protobuf is important. It's the main text of the logging message. Okay. Cool. I wonder, is the protobuf generator able to capitalize the names in the documentation? No. So let's do it here. Counters, tags, redactable. And then it's going to be an if and only if. Cool. We have documentation now. Isn't that great? Let's see that I didn't make the syntax mistake in here. Yeah. Network. Okay, so that seems appropriate. I think this looks good. Probably functional as it was before. What I was explaining is that during the off time, the camera off time, I did some additional cleanup. Now our logger, which represents the logging source for a log channel, has sinks. That is an abstraction that didn't exist before, and now we have. The file sync is a default one that corresponds to the channel writing to disk. And now I added this fluent sync variable to the logger struct. And then I verified that the other parameters are not specific to the sync. They are general for the entire channel. So it clarifies, and it will also later clarify when we go about writing documentation or technical notes to explain how this goes. It clarifies which parameters are relative to the channel and which are related to the sync. And so some of the file parameters we had before, the directory, the prefix, the maximum size, the garbage collector, and so on. All this now is specific to the file sync, and see if we don't have a file sync anymore, then we don't use all these parameters. So this way it's much clearer what the parameters are used for in the different other parts. So probably there is more cleanup and clarification possible, but we don't need to get there yet. What is interesting to me is that this fluent sync is not defined by default. And so what I don't have plugged in yet is in this function over here. I did some refactoring in the main logging function too. The code was a bit complicated to understand before, and now it's simpler. So what this code does here, let's explain this a little bit. So the following buffers contain, say, formatted entry before it enters the sink. We need different buffers because, say, different sinks use different formats. For example, the Fluent sync needs JSON, and the file sync does not use the terminal escape codes that the std sync uses. All right. When release, C buffers to the allocation pool upon the end of this function. Often the end of it's actually called returning. So put buffer will ignore its argument if it's nil. So if those variables don't get assigned, those things here are no ops. Then we have the construction here. The following code constructs and populates the formatted trees for each sink. And then there is something magical here. We only do the work if the filtering parameter does not, if the sink is active, and the filtering does not eliminate the events. So that's what we are seeing here. There is a, for each of the sinks, there is a parameter called a threshold. And if severity is not above the threshold, then the entry gets discarded. And so we are going to use the fact that the buffer is non-nil as an indicator below that the entry needs to be emitted. And so we only need to do this filtering once here. And so what we see here is that I created the Fluent buff unconditionally because the Fluent threshold and the Fluent sync were not connected yet. And this way I was guaranteed to have my Fluent data in every case. And we want to make that not true in a second. And then for the file sync, the same story. There is a file threshold initialized by default when the process starts. And then we have, say, the construction of the event only for when the entry has not been filtered. That is actually not, so yeah, sorry, I'm good with this. Arguably, we might want a mechanism to disable this standard error logging entirely by having a sync data structure for it. I haven't thought about it yet. I don't know that we have a need for that. But having the Fluent and the file thing configurable separately, that's pretty important. And so that's what we're working on the last few weeks. And that is likely what we're going to continue or working on today. Then after the data has been done, then we have if any of the sinks is active, it is now time to send it out. So the critical section that we had previously in this code of spanning the entire output function has now been reduced to just this. We only say critical section here exists so that say messages, so that the output side effects from the same event are emitted atomically. This ensures that the order of logging events is preserved across all sinks. If we did not have this critical section here, it would be possible for this logging function that is being called concurrently from multiple Go routines to run in different orders. And then we could be, for example, emitting a log message that is logically in time earlier on the sinks than another one. So that's what this critical section is buying us. And then we have the things here. If we have a formatted entry for standard errors and we send it to standard error, if we have one for Fluent and we send it to Fluent, we don't have buffering yet. I might add it later, we'll see. And if we have one for a file, then we send it to the file. And if we have a fatal error, then we also flush the file. I'm going to come back to this in a second. Let's fix this method of file sync. Yeah. And then all this was the end of the write of the side effects. And then now we have a little bit of something special called the fatal trigger. This is a channel that is going to signal to a Go routine here that say after 10 seconds, if the rest of the process has not yet exited, then this Go routine will ensure that by having this exit func, which is os.exit in the common case, being called with this exit status. And then we also have exit called, which is not going to be called if we are using os.exit, because os.exit.terminate all the time. But in the case of a test, for example, exit func does something that is not an exit. And so exit called will ensure that this channel is going to return a result. Otherwise, this defer is going to be called and block the call to the logging output if there is a fatal call, if there is a fatal severity. So that's like, this is really a prologue, not prologue, epilogue for the function that says either block or go through depending on whether there is a test around it or not. So here we are. We have this critical session that is now restricted. That's great. So all this processing can be done concurrently for different concurrent log events, which wasn't the case before. So that's a win. And our Fluent thing here is not configured yet. So what am I going to do about this Fluent configuration? We're going to do it in steps. We're going to have a, do I want steps or can I just go for the full thing? I haven't decided yet. We'll see. But I had a fix me. Let's go to the fix me. Where's the fix me? Here. Oh yeah, flush and sync log. So flush is a method that is specific to file handling. It's using this sync file. Yeah, unfortunately I cannot do this. Okay, so never mind. So that's not going to happen. Sad. So flush and sync log looked like a thing specific to files, but it uses a struct fields, this one here, which is part of the mu part, the critically protected section of this struct, which is not part of the file sync, which is a bit strange. It should be probably, but I don't want to do this refactor right now. It would take a lot of time. So instead, we're going to move forward with our network configuration and parameterization. All right. So we have this logging configuration system, and we are going to add it some entry for Fluent. And it's going to have a protocol. And are there other parameters besides the protocol and the address that I might be caring about? Well, there is something that is in the common section, which is whether it's an audit log, which means whether to synchronize the writes. And so that's not specific. I have it already. What else would I maybe care about? Maybe the timestamp format, because Fluent does have multiple formats. Maybe I want to influence the way the tag is emitted. I don't know yet, but all this seems like premature design. I don't have clear demand for it. People went to us and said, please do network logging, but they weren't exactly forthcoming with details about how they wanted it. So this code here is going to be a good MVP for testing with our first users. Now we have this sync config here, and now we can go to, we need to make it a proper sync configuration interface. So Fluent, and then Fluent, and then the same as earlier. Maybe that could become a common function. I have to think about it. Anywho, does it implement any other interface? Doesn't look like it. So let's go now to, say, a place where we decide between file and standard error is here. And now it is time for testing. So there is something I do want to point out here, and that is the effort we put in this code 2 weeks ago, 3 and 2 weeks ago, to make this parser generic and use reflection to fill in the fields has enabled us today to define this struct just here, define its fields with their data types, and not having to write any parsing code. We just had to connect it together here, and everything else is automatically supported. And as we can probably foresee, there might be more configuration options in the future. This way, we have automatic synchronization of the data structure definition and the parsing code and the pretty print code, so we don't have to synchronize 3 different things together all the time. So this was an investment. It did feel a little protracted when we started that last time, but the result is lots of time saved in the future. I'm very glad about that. So we have, why do I call it protocol when Go calls it network? It's not introduced. I mean, technically, from a pedantic perspective, it is really a protocol. But when in Go, do as a Go does. I am tempted to abbreviate this to addr instead of address. The other things have abbreviations, don't they, right? I have max file, I have dir here. So I might as well have nat and addr. All right, and so I can say nat is TCP, and addr is Lexis. And then verify that I get it back. And that was with a IPv6 address, IPv4, and now I also want to verify it works with IPv6. So the TCP shorthand is either for IPv4 or IPv6 in Go. Go also supports TCP4, TCP6 to be specific. But I don't care about that here. And because I also want to try, we're going to use UDP here. And then let's see if this test passes. Yeah. We now have configuration options to configure Fluent. Cool. 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 And now we're going to apply our configuration. So I was in a bind last time. I was very hesitant to go there and do something about it. And that is because back then I had this intuition that maybe for a given channel we wanted multiple syncs side by side. In particular, I was hesitant about whether we wanted multiple file outputs side by side. And then I thought about it a lot and I was like, I'm pretty confident people will want to have both file and network logging side by side. Is very likely even that we will encourage people to use file logging always, even if they use network logging so that if the network logging breaks at some point, they still have files to go back to. Another dimension to take into consideration is that the network logging, of course, is going to go to who knows where. And so every setup will be different. And we have a web admin interface in CockroachDB that allows the user to investigate their own logs, for example, to display the last few events that have occurred. And that system is dependent on the presence of log files in CockroachDB. So if we want to guarantee the availability of this logging event viewer in the admin UI screens, then we have no choice but to mandate the usage of the file output logger. So I have a temptation to say we're going to have at most one file logger in configured, and then at most one fluent logger, sync log configured, and then there is a CDR thing that is also configurable. Speaking of which, I don't remember if we gave it some option. Did we give it some option? Yeah, it's missing an option here, and that is a filter. Wait. Yeah, the filter is per sync. So let's give it a threshold. Oh, it is already there. Look at this. No matter, it is already there. Cool. This is done. And then that means that we don't have to use too much complexity in the algorithm to apply the configuration. We can we can populate, we will now have exactly one logger struct per channel. And then inside that struct, we will populate syncs and their options from the configuration options. And so that is where I'm going to pick up from where we were last time by effectively applying this configuration we just have here into the channel loggers that are being created around here. So here we have a new secondary logger, and then it's being added here. And then, what is the type of here? Yeah. And then after this, I can add, why? Oh, that is a separate logger for the FT2 capture logger. That's not the code I was supposed to look at. I was supposed to look at this code. To do makes this code configurable. So that's where we're going to look. The secondary logger today has very fixed options, and we are going to influence this after it's being instantiated here. We're going to go through all, say, configuration options that are given as parameter somewhere, I suppose. This function is really too long. Having long functions is not good. At some point, I will need to split it up. But we have this config option here, and we are going to take the options from the config struct and then apply it here. For example, I could write something like if config what do I want to do actually? It's not actually here that I need to apply it. It's after it's created, right? Wait a second. How does this work? And then it has the garbage collector. Then it has a filter. Then it has sync write. So there's no conditional here, so I can go there in a moment. Well, it has a directory, so I need to... Okay, so the directory and whether there is going to be file logging needs to be specified ahead of time, I think. Or can I change it? Probably can change it afterwards. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. So I'm going to make an attempt at applying the configuration after instantiating the loggers. And then if we hit a snag in that process, then we're going to reconsider and doing something different. But we can start this way. So that's that. And before I go there, I need to do some stretching openings. I've been stretching exercises. I've been sitting for nearly an hour now, and it's important to exercise a little bit. So I'll be back in a second. In a few minutes, we are going to resume. Let's make this about 5 minutes, maybe 25 past the hour. So a few minutes from now. See you in a moment. And so we are back. How everyone doing? I haven't yet completely decided if I want to enable some kind of voice recognition to automatically get subtitles. I have this intuition that having code speak for itself and adding enough comments inside the code is sufficient to understand what's going on. But I also realized today I spent some time explaining where we were, what was the reasoning. And so that didn't go in writing, although it's likely to go in writing eventually as a tech note. It's not on the video itself. And so I'm a bit unsure how to get there and have something that works. I will take suggestions. Oh, and also it's a bit warm here. I need to open a window. I'll be back in a second. There we are. Cool. So we said we want to apply the configuration. Configuration being a list, well, a slice of directives. We're going to apply the directive. And then we need something here, which is to have a predicate on the channel that says whether it matches. And I'm going to remove this one and replace it with a new one. And now here, I'm going to do for and of course, if I have all channels selected, it's going to return true in every case. All right, so for directive, and then we're going to apply this for all the channels. Oh. Needs to be an exported thing here. Let's export it. Matches channel turns true if, say, given channel is included in, say, match specification. It's a channel specification. And that implements, say, channel spec interface. Same here. Cool. CH. Is it the right type? Yeah, it is the right type. Then if it doesn't match, let's just stop there. I mean, go to the next directive. Otherwise, we have a directive that applies to this channel. So what are we going to do with it? And that's where we're going to switch on the type of sync configuration we have. And if we have a format that we are not happy about, we are going to make an error about it. And so there is some logic we need somewhere to return an error properly. Cleanup fn. Okay, so that's interesting. So cleanup fn. not just an assertion, this assertion failed because this code is meant to know about all the types. If Go had algebraic data types, we could have exhausting pattern matches, but it doesn't. So we have to do runtime error correction on programming mistakes. Isn't that sad? Oh well. I can assume this is a sync configuration, and therefore I have access to its type. It's not unknown, it's unsupported. Sync type. There we go. And now we have cases. And the first case I will care about is, say, stdr1. How is it called again? stdr, sync config. There we go. So what is configurable for stdr? There are some generic things. And that's going to be common sync config. I'm going to have that actually for all three. We could probably have some other way to embed the configuration, to apply it. Probably I don't remember if Go supports a downward dynamic cast to an embedded field, to an embedded struct. Like, does it inherit the struct that it embeds for purpose of dynamic casting? I don't remember. But I'm okay with a little bit of repetition as we are still in this prototyping phase. And now I'm going to apply the options. And that's going to be this. It's going to take a logger. Oh, something like this is nice. Like this. And in particular, the things that it wants. Let's see. Common sync config, I said. So filter is not specific to the common sync, actually. I will have to come back to that in a second. Reductable is reducted and disabled. That is interesting. I will need to look into this in a second. Audit. What do we have in a logger that is really common? So now it's a method, so I can call it this way. Cool. And what do I have in a logger? Wait. What is my channel type of? So I have sync, and inside I have a logger, and inside I have a logger. So it's actually properly defined. I don't know why it's complaining. And then we have sync writes, and we have log counter, and the entry counter can be enabled. So this is what we can do. If we have audit enabled, then we're going to say sync rights is true, log counter is true. Cool. Then what is the other option that is truly common? Reductible. That is here. There is some conceptual mistake here, which is that reductible is enabled by default. We don't have a clear way to disable it. So what's going on here is that the configuration format we chose says that if a Boolean parameter is not present in the configuration, then it defaults to false. But we don't want the omission of the reductible flag by the user to imply that the reductible log should be disabled. What we want really is that if the user has specified it to be false, then it should be disabled. And we don't have this facility yet. Our configuration format does not distinguish whether something is explicitly set to false or implicitly omitted, set to false by being omitted. And so because we can distinguish this, I don't have the thing yet to I think that works. It's an atomic bool. No, it's not like this. I need to use set. We will need to have some additional mechanisms, so we can push that to later. I mean, we probably will be satisfied with just having this option to demonstrate this thing works, and the reductible thing I can have a look off screen afterwards. So this way, our generic options are going to be applied regardless of the type that is passed. And then we will have specific options. So the filter, which looks like a common option, is going to become specific to the logger. Oh, that is not going to be nice. I had decided earlier on that my stdr thresholds would not be configured differently per yeah, maybe I do want that. Okay, so what's going on here is that my options CDR threshold is not configurable per logger. It's actually global for all the channels simultaneously. That's a change I made off screen because I thought that it was hard to use. But then for consistency here, it looks like, yeah, let me say for CDR this is suspicious. I have a hunch that it was a mistake to have, say, stdr sync config as a config. I think that it doesn't really make sense to have it a separate configuration. I haven't yet completely thought about it. We are going to tolerate the existence of this thing here for the time being, but I don't like it. In the meantime, so what we can have is a fluent sync config. So, and here I'm going to say that if we don't have it yet, we're going to create it. What's this? So initially we don't know the address, but we are going to add it in a second. I need to do some error handling in a second. I'll get there. But if I don't have an address, I need to have a clear error message. Server address is mandatory for Fluent syncs. And then, oh, do I want to make it mandatory? Probably I do, right? There is a default, and the default is localhost with port 5170. But a little bit of explicitness doesn't hurt when investigating some things for the first time. If I don't have a network though, I know what to do with that, because then we can apply default. And it's default going to be TCP. Network address. Else. There we go. And now we have applied the address. There is a filter option for the Fluent sync, and that is the Fluent threshold, and we're going to apply this here. And that sounds fine. I don't have any other configuration options there. For files, I do have a couple others actually. And so we are going to set those. We're going to set those. We're going to set those. Where are they defined? Again. Here. First store, dir. The dir thing I'm going to look at a bit later. What is it called again? Come on. Yeah, it's locked here. Oh, look at this. I have a log already. I don't need all this complexity. What is the other flag I have? It's log. I want the max file size. Byte size is uint. And the prefix. Oh. Cool. And then I have those things here. Yep. Don't ask me why it's a sign int, but we are going to tolerate it. And I have applied my configuration. Prefix, max sizes, and whether it is synchronous is here, and then fluent, and then we're about done. I probably have a couple of questions. Do we tolerate to have multiple contradictory configuration details for the same channel, the same sync type? Do we accept them like the later one wins? What do we do when a flag is not provided? Our configuration parsing system currently does not support that. Well, all these are user experience things that I will want to investigate later. For the time being, I think we are already very far. Why did I say I wanted some error handling? And it's because I said also earlier, I don't like functions that are too large. So I'm going to say this. And that was a end. Now I have this, and now I can return a simple error here, like this, like this, like this, and return nil here. Off we go. Technically, it probably would be a better thing to have the different cases in that switch go to different individual functions. But again, I want a little confidence that I'm getting anywhere with this. All right, a failure. What is a failure about? Yeah, so I was explaining that this here doesn't work like that because currently it's a global variable. And then we have l.logger still somewhere here. Cool. Seems to be connecting. Well, I'm not the kind of person who says if it builds, then it works. Unfortunately, that freedom we do not get in Go. But at least I can fight with a running process as opposed to a compiler. I just spilled some tea over my lap by mistake because it was cold. I wasn't expecting this. So as a reminder from last time, the configuration options are actually connected already. That means this function we have here does receive the configuration parameters from the command line. And we are going to verify this by actually logging something to tell the user that we are applying this configuration. And how do we do this? We do like this. Because by this time, all the configuration is complete, so it's legitimate to do this, and it's an ops channel thing. And we did have pretty printing already for the entire config, did we not, from last time? Configuration. Format. Yeah, with new lines. So I'm going to separate this with a new line as well. And then test this is true. Cool. All right. I can stop this process. And then as a reminder, we have also added this log flag last time. Oops. Just switch off my monitor. I hope that this still works. We had this flag, which we can add multiple times. And so I'm going to verify on my screens that I have everything. And I'm going to say log is for the dev channel. I want this to be a file going to /tmp. Okay, did it go to /tmp? Didn't look like it. Did it apply the configuration? Let's see. Applying the logging configuration. I have this. Log is dev file dir is tmp. Oh, I might know why it is happening. I believe that the changing of the file is not active until the files are rotated. So there is a method to say that I want to rotate the files. Close file locked, I believe. Yeah, that looks like it. Yeah, if we want to change the directory, we need to do it like this. So this is already a pointer. We have an issue here. So just to explain the code here. So what we're doing here is that we are causing the logger to reset its file output to the new location we've set here. We need a func closure so that the defer is there. I don't actually really need that. I can just write this like this, and then I can remove this, and then I have everything fine. However, what I'm annoyed with here, and that is that we have a clear sign that we really should not be setting, say, directory after the logger has started. So what you see is that there is a logging output before the one we are looking at here, which is this one, and that is not good, and that is because we have this Oh no, that's actually only for the secondary logger. Yeah, it's right. So the secondary logger for FT2 capture. Okay, it's not the same logger. Okay, never mind. Well, I actually don't know why changing the directory was not effective. So I'm a little bit afraid about this. If it doesn't match the channel, and my channel here match has been implemented properly, maybe I need to do form directive. Does directive implement formatting? It doesn't look like it, does it? Config directive. Like this, I think. This is a bit of printf debugging, really. I mean, logging never hurts. It's always good to be logging what the server is doing on a regular basis. I'm not putting a lot of effort into designing my logging messages to be useful yet. I'm more currently looking for proof that the code here is being run. And if I don't have this proof, that might be a sign that I have some assumptions about the rest of the code that are not valid. So what do we do about that? I don't know yet, but I'm somewhat hopeful that we'll get some option to work today and at least prove that the fluent connection is working properly. So make a test directory here. And then do this. And then look at the configuration application here. Oh, look at this. Applying logging configuration, but the next line here was not printed. See? So here, it's cool, but it doesn't work. And that is odd because I do have all the channels applied here after this. So what is going on? Oh, look at this. Dev uses main log for now. This is fascinating. I forgot about this little design. It's a get logger. Yeah, so the get logger function has a special case for the dev channel, and that's what we were doing for our testing so far. That's why it didn't work. That is a sad waste of time. So what I would really like to have is the ability to build a Cockroach binary without certain components enabled in the source code. So I have only the logging, for example, enabled and the command line flag parsing, but it's not able to do other things. Cool. So if I look back here, applying configuration, that might not be the same. Is it the same? It still hasn't applied my configuration, I think. Yeah, hasn't. But we know already that the dev channel has a special purpose. So let's overload the ops channel. And there we go. We have the logging going to this directory for the ops channel, but not the other channels, which still go to the logs directory. So I'm going to prove this, remove this, cockroach data, then start this. Then if I look at the log directory, there is an ops channel here, but there is also one in the test directory. So that's not very far from what I had explained in this fix me message, which is that it's possible that the moment we create the secondary logger here, immediately there is some event that gets emitted to it to say, well, off we go. Oh no, look, I'm silly. It's because of this info call here. Because of the info call, we print something to the ops channel before it goes to the file. So that's what we see. But nevertheless, the configuration gets applied and I get the thing I want. So right now, Fluent is not capturing our data. So the last messages are still from so it is already right now using Fluent logging. Maybe I'm not using the connector. Yeah, look at this. Logging process for Fluent. And then we are going to have our logger sync. That's right. That's what we're missing. Chris writes, I'm sorry for joining late, but what does Fluent refer to? Is Fluent.d the log aggregator or something else? Yes, it is the log aggregator. I am referring to this magical piece of software, and that is, after researching multiple options for network log collection, the best solution I have found for many reasons that you will be able to listen to if you rewatch this video after I end the stream. All right, let's do this. Now, I'm going to remove my log file. And then it's not there anymore. Do I need to restart the server? I don't remember. Maybe I do. Let's assume I do. Cool. And then coming back to this, I now start my server. By default, it is not logging to Fluent. So that's good. And if I overwrite this and I say address is then it will start logging to Fluent and I will see my messages coming here. Yay! Little wind dance. I have achieved. We have achieved. I've collectively achieved. So, to recap, what happened? There was a little code prototype going into Fluent off camera last week as I was on vacation to verify I understood the interaction between Fluent and client programs. And then I wrote some code inside CockroachDB to format JSON code, the JSON payload, And today we did the connection with the configuration, and now we have this configuration system we designed and implemented in the last 3 weeks, connected to the logging system, applied, and we connected it to Fluent so that now we can configure network logging for channels, and we can even apply filters to this. So I would like to have some filters that gives me an error. So for example, we have here a filter. We have a warning message and an error message when we press Ctrl+C. So I'm going to do that. And I want to say that I want to filter anything that has a warning or a buff. And what this gives me now, my, let's erase the log file again to verify that it's clear what's happening. All right. Now we see only the warnings. So the filtering works. Ooh, the filtering works. It's nearly as if we had a working feature. Well, MVP of the feature. So what I'm missing here to be satisfied for today, I said the severity here is not exactly practical because it's likely that we want with Fluent to do the filtering on the severity based on the tag. And our tag here does not contain the severity, which is a customary way for programs to annotate severity, to add it to the tag. So we're going to add the severity in the tag before we call it a day. And if we do this, we will need to fix this test in a second. I probably should fix this test before. Yeah, this test is completely out of date because now the different payload fields are one letter except for the tag. Let's do this. Why do we have one letter fields in JSON except for tags and the message? And that is because, and the tags is omitted by the way when it is empty. That is because the payload is large. I do want to refer to a tweet I made a couple months ago about coworkers that were complaining about some performance issues that started to appear after some subsystem in CockroachDB was configured to use JSON instead of a simpler, more compact format. And so they were sad that everything was slow because of JSON, and it's because JSON is large. And so having those fields be short ensures that in cases, in many cases, the message is not that long, and so the field should not be a larger part of the payload. Cool. So let's do the severity thing. So severity today is an integer here. That is what I want, but I actually want the severity to have a lowercase name. So this is needs to be closer to the functions that does the encoding. Names can be severity here. Cool. And so I can do this. Like this. And that allows me to remove, say, textual form of the severity that I had written over here. And now compile this, and we're going to test it out. I'm a bit over time. The stream was scheduled to last only 1 hour and a half, and we are already beyond that. But I really feel very close to the goal which is a goal we set for ourselves 4 weeks ago. And now that it's so close, I would really like to end the stream with like feeling satisfied that things look copacetic. And then next time we can do some programming on a different topic, because by that time that will at last be ready for review by the team. So I stop this and I can restart it and then ask, yeah. Oh, there's no warning anymore, maybe because there is a filter. Let's remove the filter for a second. That is not great. Why do I not get any log message anymore? Oh, it's because they're buffered or something, I think. Yeah, there's some buffering going on. No, that is not the case. Oh, look at this. Aha! I understand. So the matching rule now, because it only has 2 parameters. What did I just erase? I don't know. Oh, flush interval. Yeah, this matching pattern here needs 3 flags. Maybe if I remove the dot altogether, it will match everything. I like that. Let's try it. It's easier. This way I don't have to think about it. Does this buy me what I wanted? I hope so. I'm not seeing anything. No, so okay, so that's interesting. So the match here needs to match on all the parts. I don't mind. Maybe there's some usability analysis to be done on this. Do I want a 3-part tag, or do I want a oh, that's not going to be good actually, because if I do a tag split, then I have a situation, and that is that the default configuration for file logging will emit the things to different, every severity to a different file. So actually, my severity in the tag is not a great idea. That, okay, I rescind. I think it's not going to work. I think we should keep this severity inside the payload and not have it here. That was not a good idea. So that is, again, proof that experimentation is a good way to try things, to verify the ideas are good. But we do need to fix this test, which is outdated. It's going to tell me that I'm missing the severity and other things. Probably this test would benefit from having some kind of automatic rewriting. Oh well. At least it's going to tell me what it wants, and this way I can copy paste the results of what it wants with what I have. There we go. So let's verify what it's trying to say. Yeah, the counter is moved to the beginning. The counter is moved to the beginning? What? Oh. So, no, it's a channel number. Yeah. And then we have log.test.dev. I think that log.test.dev is okay, but it reminds me that there is such a thing as replacing characters. This is not going to work properly if, well, okay, so there is some more work to be done. So I'm going to have a fix me here. Fluent prefers if there is no period in the tag other than the one splitting the application and category. So we need 2 escape characters here. It's the same way as done in file.go. Cool. Other than that, I have my severity is here at 0. And then for severities that are not 0, my test doesn't use a severity other, so I actually probably want a severity that is not completely trivial. Then we can try this again. The reason why it's so long to build is that the logging package tests, some of them use the SQL package, which in turn depends on pretty much everything. I understand that it doesn't need to be this way. Probably we could have sub-packages that only test certain components of logging so that the main logging package can be compiled quickly. It might be a good idea to do this, actually, this refactoring. It will make maintenance of the logging package easier for people coming after me. But it's not a super exciting activity, so I might as well do that out off camera, it's called. What did I do? Oh, cool. Let's try this now. So we have our severity. Severity, where is it? Severity. I don't see my severity. Where is it? Oh my. I did set up the severity, but it's not printed. Why? Everything's there. Everything else is there. What's going on? Severity here. If it's large enough. And then I have this. Just after, just after the timestamp. It's just after the timestamp. Did I not look properly? No. And the timestamp doesn't. Oh. I made a mistake in the copy paste. Yeah. I want this to be copy pasted, not the other one. Silly me. This is a new structure. And here we have the timestamp and we have our severity here and the severity with a letter as well. Maybe we want the full word for severity instead of a letter. I don't know. What I like about the letter is that this way it's easy for a operator to configure the Fluent daemon to write to files with the same logging format that is otherwise used by CockroachDB. That could be cool. So I might do that later. Let's finish this little substitution. Like this. And now this test should be fine. Cool. So what do we have now? I think that I'm pretty satisfied. So we have an ability to configure the logging parameters for any kind of struct with fields inside without having to rewrite the config parser every time. It's connected to the CockroachDB command line, to the CockroachDB initialization. It affects our parameters, even though there's a little thing odd happening with files, which still needs to be fixed. It kind of works satisfactorily. And I have my network logging, and I have compatibilities with Fluent, and I can configure it to go to TCP or to UDP or to Unix, like Unix sockets. And the one thing I don't have is TLS, might come later, but already quite a lot of feature coverage. So the next step, there will be some off-camera simplification and refactoring of the code, probably fixing the few remaining bugs I found. then writing a tech note to explain how to use this in practice. I have learned a few things about how Fluent works that I probably would like to share with the teams and people who will use CockroachDB to say what is the recommended way to integrate, and I will share the example configuration I have made in that documentation, and then maybe later at some point a blog post or something like that. And in the meantime, send it to the team for review, evaluation, discussion. There might be additional comments, and then see from there. That does mean that this series of streams on this configuration system is coming to an end. I don't think there will be more valuable insights to stream on this particular topic. So that means that after I complete this and upload it, that will be 1 unit of work. And next time, next Monday at the latest, we can start working on something else. So thank you for watching. Thank you for accompanying this exercise. Feel free to leave feedback and subscribe and recommend me anything I should learn or look at or maybe investigate. And see you next time.